Hello, Shiver Seekers. Are you ready to follow us into the unknown? I'm Cynthia.
And I'm Stephanie. You have found the Dark Oak. In today's episode, we travel into part 2 of the tragic story of Robyn Gardner, who disappeared from beautiful Aruba while visiting in 2011 with her travel companion, Gary Giordano.
Welcome to the Dark Oak, the mystery podcast with purpose. Each month through our charity called the Branch of Hope Foundation, we give a portion of our earnings from our Patreon and sponsors to a nonprofit organization related to the first episode of the month. To find out how you can be a part of the movement, head over to thedarkoak.com or stay with us until the end of the episode and we will give you all of the details.
Well, as you said, Cynthia, this is a part 2 of the case of Robyn Gardner. And I'm sure you can attest, do not proceed, do not pass go, do not collect $200 until you have gone back and listened to part 1, because you will be kind of lost. And also, all kinds of good stuff in part 1.
I literally was like shocked when you said, okay, and that's where I'm leaving you. I was like, what?
And also, I want to give it a shout out to anybody who's joining us after participating in our summer collaboration with True Crime Creepers and Coffee and Cases. If you're new to the Dark Oak podcast, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we hope you stick around.
I think it was probably my hot summer puns that really got people going.
You were just simply irresistible, Stephanie. It was all of you. All of you.
It's a hot true crime summer.
It sure is.
And, oh, girl, we typically here at the Dark Oak don't go into, like, more salacious type cases or ones that have a ton of speculation and don't have very clear details and that in any way victim blame or, just kind of try to paint people and not the best light. Like, that's not the kind of podcast we like to be. This one is so hard to dissect all the pieces, though, and the moving pieces, like all the very human players, people making maybe some not great choices, people not using the best discernment, people maybe looking out for themselves more than other people. And it's really kind of hard to cut through all of that and get to the facts of what happened. It's just a lot of gray area, I think is what I'm trying to say.
And that's okay because, no two cases are the same. No two sets of circumstances are the same. We're not like cookie cutter people, and it's not cookie cutter stories we tell here.
All right. Now, the last we heard about 35-year-old Robyn Gardner and 50-year-old Gary Giordano, Gary had gone to the back door of the Rum Reef Bar and Grill and said that he needed help because his travel companion, Robyn, had disappeared while they were snorkeling. And the kitchen staff in the back responded by calling the police. And again, just a little recap. His original story was that he and Robyn had been walking along the beach. Robyn had cut her foot on a rock. Remember, they had that. And then afterwards, he had asked her if she wanted to go for a swim. Without answering him, she got into the water with her snorkel gear, and Gary followed with his snorkel gear. According to Gary, he found the water current too strong, so he tapped on Robyn's leg, motioned back to the shore. He turned around, and again, without looking back the entire time, arrived at the shore, only to realize that Robyn was not with him. Well, at least that was one version of his story. Remember, there were several versions, and some of them you said could all be condensed down or melted down into one version, right?
That was my take.
Confusing a current with a riptide combined with his wearing his socks and shoes while he's snorkeling, which again, we could debate, why were you wearing your socks and shoes? Maybe it was because of the rocks. So I can see where you're going. Like, those could all be possibilities. It is strange that, we're not getting a clear picture of what's going on, though.
I think generally when people are truth-telling, they say the same thing, like almost verbatim. And there are definitely different like words being used in each of these retellings. But for me, like you just said, a lot of them could kind of be the same story, just told different ways.
Right. So to recap, it was the current was too strong, so I had to turn back. I was caught in a riptide, so I had to turn back. My shoes and socks were waterlogged, making it hard for me to swim, so I had to turn back. And then there was the suggestion that there was like a weird pop-up storm, even though we know that was not the case, because there was a diving school right around the corner who said there were no storms and no waves. And then there was also a helicopter above that could actively see marine life through the water because it was so calm. So we can kind of eliminate the storm one.
Sure.
Now, after emergency services were called, again using
911.
911, the Aruban emergency number of 911, Gary waits at the
Sure.
That's where a normal person would have waited, but that is not where Gary waited. Gary instead waited 20 minutes for emergency personnel to arrive at the restaurant.
So after calling 911, he did not even go back down to where he last saw her.
He did not. He not only did he not go, he is adamant that he didn't need to go. She was gone. She was gone. There was nothing that could have been done.
Okay, well, even if you believe that to be true, which quite frankly, 20 minutes after she goes under, 20 minutes after she last seen, there is a good chance she is gone. I mean, this doesn't end well, as we know, but you're still not even going to go, like, be there? I don't know. That seems strange.
It to me, I mean, so there are a lot of things that kind of, raise suspicions. This is definitely one of them for me.
Well, and especially since he originally, as soon as he got out of the water, according to him, looks back, she's not there. He didn't wait around to see if she came up. So for all he knows, she could have popped up.
And screamed for help.
Right. He didn't wait around. He just immediately went and called 911.
And so, again, I can see that. If you're panicking and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know the emergency number, which I don't know if he did or he didn't, but let's say he didn't know the emergency number. If he ran to the restaurant, said, quick, call 911, I'm going to go back to the water to see if I can see her.
Yes.
That I could see.
Yes.
I mean, I still would have probably stayed at the shore a little longer. Or I'm going to go grab my circle gear, or I'm going to go get binoculars, or I'm going to go get a stick, or so, I don't know, anything, right?
Right. But get help on the way, and then I'm going to go back and do what I can.
Yes, but he did not do that. He sat at the restaurant and talked to restaurant patrons.
Because it was a lost cause.
Because what could he have done? And also remember, there's this idea that he was fighting for his life with either waterlogged shoes or riptide or a current. And then he ran, the 200 yards to the restaurant, even though where we see him on camera, he is not running or jogging. But he said it was just all too much for him and there's just nothing he could have done.
Okay, I mean, we know we all handle things differently, so I will just go with it, but it is raising some red flags for me.
A few. So when authorities arrived, they questioned him, and he told them Robyn disappeared while they were snorkeling, the story that we've told a few times. Now, I want to go back to how they were dressed at the restaurant, because I know you had some questions about that.
It's driving me crazy.
I told you we would get there.
I know. I've been really trying hard to be like, but what about the dress?
Now, Robyn was dressed up.
Yes.
Yes. So the full hair, the makeup, the full-length dress. I mean, she looked amazing. I showed you the video, after part 1, and yeah, she's phenomenal.
She looked amazing, but she was not, it would have been a change to go from that to, snorkeling.
And I will tell you, she did not have a bathing suit under her dress.
Okay, because that was a big question for me. Maybe she just had her little bathing suit underneath, but no.
She did not have a bathing suit under the dress. And remember, Gary at the restaurant was in his shirt, his shorts, his socks, and his shoes. And again, neither one had on a bathing suit. Gary told authorities that he went swimming in his shorts, socks, and shoes, like we said. And while it's unclear exactly what Robyn was wearing when she entered the water, Gary said she left her dress and wedge sandals on the shore.
Which you would have to. You can't go snorkeling in a full-length dress. He was not able to say what she had underneath it?
He has never said to my knowledge.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe that's a detail that just hasn't been revealed. I don't know if she went in the nude. I don't know if she went in her undergarments. I'm not exactly sure in what state she entered this very rocky area. You know what I'm saying? It just...
Because I'm all about a romantic skinny dip, okay? But
yeah,
with rocks...
This is what I'm saying. It just doesn't seem like that kind of excursion.
No, it doesn't.
Now, when Gary arrives at the restaurant, again, after, his reported running to get help, he is wearing his same shorts, his socks, and his shoes, but no shirt. And from what I can tell, his hair does not look wet. And it's a little hard to tell, but you don't see drips. He's not leaving water spots. How can you tell if his socks are wet, inside his
Sure.
shoes? So I can't say conclusively, but many have argued that he doesn't look wet at all.
But he should be soaking because he just came out of water where he's fighting for his life. He should be head to toe drenched soaking.
Exactly.
Especially wearing heavy, if you're wearing tennis shoes and socks, you should be leaving a trail of water.
Right. Now, the reason I kind of go back to this a little bit is that Gary wore a toupee.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in all honesty, I don't know a ton about toupees, but from what I was able to look up, toupee glue or wig glue attaches the wig to the scalp. And depending on the type of glue you purchase, it can last anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks.
Oh.
So these are a lot more permanent than I thought they were.
Me too. I thought it was a daily application.
Apparently, technology has improved.
Okay.
Which is wonderful.
That's wonderful. Yeah. How
Absolutely.
convenient.
And there are certain types of sweat and water resistant glues, but you have to select them ahead of time. And maybe Gary did. I mean, maybe he knew he was going to Aruba. He wanted to look good. He knew he was going to the beach. He was going to be snorkeling. And so maybe he got this excellent toupee glue. I have to say, though, even the best glue, if you are, quote, fighting for your life in a riptide or a current, is your toupee going to stay on perfectly?
So I would assume it's probably similar to maybe fake eyelashes. Obviously, it's much heavier.
Right.
I've worn many a fake eyelash. They would come off if I went swimming and went underwater. Now, it's not heavy-duty glue. I assume the glue would be better for a toupee.
And again, there are sweat and water resistant in normal swimming, bathing circumstances.
Right.
Fighting the current
It's a different scenario.
I think is a different scenario.
Right.
So the fact that he is able to emerge
Mm-hmm.
either makes me think he did not fully submerge in the water, or the conditions in the water were not as tumultuous as he describes.
I think that's a fair thought. I would assume that going on this trip, going with a beautiful girl, he would have invested in the really good glue. I certainly would have.
Probably.
So let's just say he's wearing the great glue. But yeah, I'm not sure. But I see what you're saying, and I think that's a valid point, something to think about.
Yeah. Now, police also noted that Gary was sweating profusely, and there was a scratch on his neck.
Were police able to verify that he was pretty wet? Because he's fully clothed. He should have still been wet for hours after this happened.
Well, remember, police didn't arrive for 20 minutes.
You don't dry in 20 minutes.
According to Gary, he was wringing out his socks when the police were there. I don't know. Gary, in some of his interviews, is prone to exaggeration, if you will. So, I don't know. He claims he was soaked.
And if you were, you wouldn't dry in 20 minutes unless it is incredibly hot and humid. But we live somewhere pretty hot. You don't dry in 20 minutes.
Yeah,
but your shoes would be wet for days. Unless.
Right. So, but again, even if his socks and shoes were wet, to me, that doesn't necessarily corroborate his story about what happened.
Well, I will tell you this. Going where I think we may be going with this, I feel like Gary should be wet in any set of circumstances. Because I'm assuming that if Robyn was not, in fact, lost in this tragic accident, then she was put in the ocean under some set of circumstances, in which case I think it would require for someone to put her there, and that person's probably wet. Are you going to talk about her dress?
There is not much more to talk about the
Did
dress.
they find it? Was it?
I have read conflicting information. Some have said they did find the dress and wedges on the beach, on the rocky beach.
Mm-hmm.
Some have said by the time the authorities got there, they found no trace of Robyn, not even clothing. So I don't want to say which one that is because I wasn't able to find sources that I thought were 100% accurate.
Because if they found the dress, to me, that would definitely like help his story a lot. If they don't find the dress, that really hurts his story.
Yeah. I was not able to find, like, an authority did
Okay.
not come out and say. There's speculation both ways. People that do not believe in Gary's innocence, to put it kindly, you know, have painted it in a light that...
Sure. The one that best
Yes.
fits their narrative.
Exactly. So I don't want to say either way because I'm not sure.
Okay.
Now, Aruban authorities, unlike Gary, actually acted very quickly. And more than 60 officials, including FBI agents, Aruban police officers, and volunteers combed the beaches and water. But they found no trace of Robyn, like I said. And remember when Gary claimed that Robyn had cut her foot on the beach before going in the water? Well, blood was found on the beach next to the rental car. Unfortunately, though, the DNA analysis of the blood revealed it was too decomposed to offer any conclusive results.
That's interesting.
It was interesting. Now, it has been reported that it was a bloody handprint. That is not correct.
Oh, I was going to say that's even more interesting.
It was widely reported right after her disappearance that
Okay.
it was a bloody handprint, but I have not seen anything to support that. It was reported on a lot of news channels, actually, but I haven't seen anything from any Aruban authorities saying it was a handprint. It was just a spot of blood. And again, it was degraded, and so they weren't able to, just because of the elements. It's
Sure.
salty, sandy,
Yeah.
water. So they weren't even able to say it was Robyn's.
Okay. Well, because all along in the back of my mind, I've been like, how bad did she cut her foot? Am I going to go get in the ocean, the stingy salt water, after really cutting my foot? Now, if it's just like a little, a little cut, maybe not as big of a deal, but that's the fact that she had to return to the car to doctor the foot made me think it might have been a bit significant.
I do wonder also if this is just a convenient story to explain why they might find blood on the beach.
Also, a very good point. Yeah.
Ooh, I hate that my mind thinks that way, but right? Wouldn't that be a convenient narrative?
It would absolutely
If
be.
he knows they're going to find some blood, why don't you go ahead and try to explain it away?
Yeah, girl. Yeah, you're
Or
right.
maybe she really did just cut her foot. I don't know.
But, yeah. Strange to go snorkel when
Right.
you're bleeding.
Right. Yeah. That was pretty much it for the day of Robyn's disappearance. That evening, Gary just went home to his hotel.
So she's just lost in the ocean, presumably.
She's just gone. The next day, Gary went to the U.S. consulate, and then he made a call to Robyn's mother. The next call he made, which was supposedly on the advice of his newly retained lawyer, was to an insurance company to inquire about the $1.5 million travel insurance policy he had taken out on Robyn prior to their trip.
Okay. Oh. All right.
Bomb drop!
Okay, tell me more about this, because how does this insurance work? Does it work this way? And why would you take out insurance on really a stranger?
Well, I can give you all the reasons that I can think of and that Gary has provided. However,
Okay.
I really don't know. We're just going to have to accept it for what it is.
And $1.5 million
$1.5
travel.
million of travel insurance.
Okay.
Now, this was an American Express assurance policy, and it covered typical things like lost luggage and canceled flights, but it also had coverage for accidental death while on vacation.
No, Stephanie, I just got chills. I just got chills.
Yeah.
Because $1.5 million does not make sense for lost luggage. Oh, no. I didn't even know they had this kind of policy.
Well, you do now.
Oh, this is scary.
Yeah. After this act of calling the insurance company, again, he says it was at the advice of his attorney. Whatever it was, it made Gary look, if he didn't look suspicious before, You got chills.
I got chills. And also the day after, I mean, you're like, you should be like feeling some kind of way. You know what I mean? The day after, I'm going to one, retain a lawyer, and two, call my insurance company.
Yeah. Now, he claims he bought the insurance when he purchased the airplane tickets to Aruba. He claimed that this particular travel insurance applied to all the members of a traveling party. And he was simply using the insurance to support his children in case something happened to him on the trip. And Robyn just happened to be included in the policy because she was traveling with him.
I mean, it's convenient to have. I mean,
Unfortunately, this is not an entirely true story. I will let you know.
okay. All right. See, here I am being like devil's advocate, but
That's not exactly the way it works. It's partly true.
okay.
In another interview already, Gary
Uh-huh.
has changed his story again, and he said that he took out the insurance on Robyn because she had recently lost her job and didn't have health insurance. So if something happened to her while on the trip, he wanted to make sure that he could cover her medical expenses.
Does it work that way? I get sick, so it covers my medical?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, then that is smart.
Yeah.
He's maybe a better planner than I am because I wouldn't have done any of this.
Maybe. It's possible. Again, these are these gray areas of this story. We're just not really sure. It just doesn't read right.
Again, because it's not his wife. Like, it's not his longtime, although according to
Yes.
him, we don't know. But like, if it were me and my husband, then okay, I might think about these things. But just like, if you and I go on vacation, I don't know that I'm going to think about getting a insurance
Health
policy
insurance
for you.
No, I'm not.
And I love you, but like, I'm just not going to think that.
I'm in the same department. Or I'd be like, well, that's kind of your responsibility.
Right.
You're an adult. Figure it out.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he claims his attorney told him to check with the insurance company to find out if they would pay for the search efforts for Robyn. According to Gary, his attorney said, quote, helicopters and divers might send you an invoice. Call insurance and ask them how they deal with these expenses. He also said he would have used the money to pay for Robyn's mother's plane ticket to Aruba. Now, all these are plausible, but the day after, and again, accidental death, search party, I don't know. Again, at this point, she's just missing.
Now, I will say they do give, hearing you say out loud his reasoning, I'm like, okay, well, it does bring his mom there. Oh, well, if there's this expensive search party that I can, pay to have, like, I mean, it kind of answers the why. I'm not saying that it's the truth. I'm just saying it's a good excuse.
My concern here is after some actual investigation, what was revealed is that when Gary signed up for insurance for $1.5 million, his beneficiary was his mother because it was to take care of his children. Robyn's beneficiary was Gary.
Yeah.
It just, again, it doesn't read right. And again, still, I want to reiterate, Robyn's only missing. And maybe
right,
it
she hasn't been declared dead.
No, of course not. There's still a chance she could be found, right?
I mean,
it's unlikely, but the next day?
Right, that would be, there would be hope, I think. You would still have hope.
I think the next day you would. But again, he had already given up hope within minutes.
Yeah.
Of her disappearing into the ocean.
I made it to the shore. She's a goner.
She's a goner.
I'm
That's
outta
it.
here.
Now, when Robyn's mother and younger brother, Andrew Coulson, arrived in Aruba, they were immediately suspicious of Gary Giordano. They said he was acting suspicious and wasn't straightforward with his answers. Andrew said Gary didn't seem sorrowful, remorseful, or in any way concerned about Robyn's disappearance.
I mean, I believe that based on what...
Absolutely. This
what
is
we've
reading straightforward
seen.
to me.
Yeah. Now, I can understand their suspicion, even if he wasn't acting suspicious, just because they're just learning about this guy. So
of course.
They're not going to like him. They like Richard. They don't like Gary.
Well, right.
So that part, I can kind of, could go either way. But yeah, he's obviously not remorseful or sorry or sad or anything. We've seen that.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Gary just assumed he's going to hit that airplane on the way back at the end of their 5 days. So he takes his rental car and has it thoroughly detailed.
Nope. No, you don't do that.
before returning it to Star Rental Car at the airport.
Mm-mm.
Who has their rental car professionally detailed before returning it? Especially in a place like Aruba.
You would never, unless you wanted to. I mean, we know why we would want to do that, but like, yeah, no, you would never pay to have your car cleaned.
Yeah.
You're already paying to have the car cleaned.
You're already, exactly. Like, no.
Unless there was some kind of, but he would have to give, we smoked in the car and there's $1,000 fine for smoking in the car. So I wanted to pay $300 to have it cleaned as opposed to having to pay $1,000 for, something like that. But you should be able to give those details.
He's never said anything in that vein.
Okay.
I'm not really sure why the Aruban authorities would have let him have the car detailed as well if they thought there was something to glean from it. But nevertheless, the evidence that could have been in the car is now gone. Now, after dropping off the car, Gary just went on to board his original flight back home, which is just crazy to me.
At the very least, he doesn't seem to care about his alleged friend.
Right.
Like, at the very least, he's like...
Right. There is a rumor. I don't know if this is what actually happened. However, I've seen Gary asked if he said this, and he wasn't able to say, no, I didn't. So I'm the error on the side of maybe he said this. But as he was checking in, the ticket agent, not knowing the whole Gary Robyn story, simply said, oh, I see you have a traveling companion linked to your ticket. Will she be joining us? And Gary said, no, she'll be catching the next flight. Like, what? And he was asked directly in an interview, like, did you say that? And he just said, I don't think I said that, but I can't remember exactly what I said. I mean, I didn't really want to engage with this ticket agent, so I just brushed them off.
Okay, so maybe this makes me a terrible person, but I feel like I could have potentially answered a question like this that same way. Because what are you going to say? No, she drowned in the ocean, or no, she's missing, or like I might just be like, oh no, like she's like, you know what I mean? Just
And maybe that's the case.
for you, it's uncouth. For you, it's not good.
No, I don't know.
What would you have wanted him to say?
Just no.
Okay, just no is a complete sentence.
No, just will she be joining you? No, unfortunately not.
Okay.
That to me would have been sufficient.
And see, knowing me and like the fact that I'm
well,
like,
of course, because you always
me.
have to feel like you have to fill. You feel like you need to fill in like empty space. So you would have been providing like a whole a paragraph of information.
I absolutely would have. And then 6 months later, when they were like, "Did you say this?" Or I'm on Dr. Phil, and they'd be like, "Did you say this?"
You're like, well, I don't know, maybe. So I would have just said no, unfortunately not. And I just would have moved on.
Yeah.
So anyway, I can't even confirm that he said this. I just think it's a weird detail. And what is like a truly like dramatic twist? Aruban police descended upon the airport and detained Gary Giordano while he was walking down the gangway towards his plane back to the United States. Yes. I've seen some interviews with some other, prosecutors and detectives. Like, why would they do that? Like, wait to the last minute to like detain him. And some of the theory was that the Aruban police were actually watching him, like what he might do, what he might take, what he might dispose of. Is he going to do anything else that may be a tell that something had happened that he's trying to cover up?
That makes a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah.
So
that explained it for me. I went, yeah, okay. Because otherwise I was like, what on earth? What are they doing?
Close call.
Exactly. But it sounded like it was kind of this strategic move that maybe he would have revealed something else before they actually detained him.
This is why they're the detectives and we are not.
Clearly. Because I was like,
poor planning.
Way to almost miss him. But I do imagine that was a pretty dramatic scene going down at the airport.
Oh, and can you imagine being like in his shoes?
No.
I mean,
you're thinking you're almost on the plane.
Yeah, you're almost home and then phew.
And then you're not.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, according to Aruban law, authorities are able to detain Gary for questioning for almost 4 months while they gather evidence, which is significant.
Where is he like jailed during this time? Or...
Yeah. This turns into kind of a huge part of Gary's story after the fact, that he was tortured and interrogated. And by tortured, I mean they made him stay in a cell.
For some of us, that would be torture, Stephanie.
To Gary, this was. So to him, this was an incredible injustice. And again, in the United States, it's, we have a little bit more of a speedy right to trial and all those kinds of things. So it's not 4 months, but whatever it was, they had 4 months to try to gather more information. And
Okay.
at this point, Gary's the only suspect.
Yeah, he's the only one.
Either she drowned in an accident, like he said, or Gary did something. Those are really our only two options right now.
Yeah, I can't think of anything else that could have happened.
Right.
But man, if he didn't kill her, like what a twist that vacation took.
Yeah.
Like I'm now in this foreign country for 4 months being detained for murder.
Right. Also, maybe you shouldn't call the day after your traveling companion disappears and see about collecting insurance money. I don't know, or maybe like stand on the beach and actually look for her.
I don't think he's a likable guy. I don't think I like him. But if he's not guilty, I do have some sympathy for him.
I think that's totally fair. Now, during this time in jail, Gary was, as you expected, interrogated several times. Initial questioning was to determine the nature of the relationship between Robyn and Gary, which we're several hours into this, and I still don't know what it is. So I think those are all fair questions. And truly, as a podcast host, what I will say is whatever happened to Robyn, it doesn't matter what the relationship was with Gary. I find that this insatiable need to figure out what the relationship was is just a curiosity. I don't feel like it should really play into what happened in this case.
Do you think it could be motive, though? Like an unrequited, attraction, or you know what I mean, on Gary's part, like he wants something she won't give, and so maybe that's motive.
It's possible. I do find that people kind of want to define this relationship a lot more than it is able to be defined. They had a very unusual relationship, I guess is what I will say. A lot of emphasis is put on their relationship when I feel more of it needs to be put on what happened to her, if that makes sense. Like, this is a component of it, but I find like this is one of the more salacious parts of the story, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
So people stop feeling for her as a victim and start focusing on the gossip.
Yes.
I get that.
Thank you for saying that more clearly.
Yeah.
That's what I feel this is. So I will go into some of it, but I don't want to dwell on it too much because, again, I don't want to take away from Robyn,
right,
by getting into the nitty-gritty of what their relationship was.
Sure.
But to your point, it could answer questions for us, like, why did she go on this trip? Was she interested in a relationship with Gary? Was he interested in her? And at this point, the two in most articles are just referred to as traveling companions. And even Gary has referred to them at different points of relationship. He's called her a friend. He's called her a lover. He's called her a travel companion. Depending on what interview, he calls her different things as well, which is also confusing.
It's so Gary.
It's so Gary, isn't it? But Gary said the two had known each other for 2 years and were a couple. But Robyn also dated other people. He said she was also an escort, but that he wasn't paying her to be on the trip.
Okay.
So I'm not sure what that means. Like, she escorted for other people, but not for him. And he's the only one to ever use the word escort. I just don't know.
But he's saying that they were in a relationship, but he knew so I'm assuming he knows all about Richard and is fine with that. Sounds like it's kind of an open relationship.
But if
she's
that's
also
the case,
an escort,
why would she feel the need to go into the restroom to text Richard?
Well, to me, Gary already comes across as like a jealous, controlling person because he was mad that she even went on a trip with Richard instead of going somewhere with him.
But remember, if he's saying, well, we're a couple, but she sees other people.
Right.
Wouldn't that assume compliance, like understanding that we just have an open relationship?
Ideally, I think it should. Yeah. Like, you can't really be cool with it and then not be cool with it. That's not fair.
But just the way they're acting on the video, they just don't, if they are in a relationship, it certainly doesn't look like a very close one.
I will tell you from the video you showed me of them walking into the restaurant, it's how I would act with my husband if I was annoyed or just not really into it, like preoccupied or something. It's not how I would act on a date. It's certainly not how I would act on a new date trying to impress somebody.
Like a honeymoon retreat to Aruba.
Oh, it is not how I would act with
Right.
my husband on a romantic vacation. It's just another day.
Yeah.
Like they did not look like new, fresh lovers.
They didn't look like, I mean, they were certainly together.
Yes.
I mean, they looked like they were cordial. They looked like they were fine, but they certainly didn't look like some kind of budding romance.
They were not fight. Exactly. There was no indication that anything was wrong either. It was just, there's you and here's me, and we're both going to the same place.
Yeah, that's basically how it looks to me too. Now, while being detained in the Aruban jail, Gary's personal belongings and home were searched, and his cell phone, laptop, and a digital camera were analyzed. What officials found on Gary's digital camera would become another news sensation. Scandalous pictures of Robyn in different sexual poses that were described as, quote, beyond pornographic.
Okay, that took a turn.
Now, I don't know much more about these photos, except that they were mostly of Robyn with partial images of Gary.
Together. So it's of the two of them together. It's not something she's, like a selfie she's sending to him.
They are mostly of Robyn.
Okay.
But in a few of the photos, there's like, kind of like pieces of Gary, if you will. And not like pieces like that, but like Gary's kind of like partially in the shot.
Okay.
If you will. In one article I read, it said that the beyond pornographic comment was made because a lot of the photos contained organs.
Sure.
But these photos really put everyone into a tailspin. And what I do want to take away from these photos is, number one, investigators do not believe these photos were taken under duress.
Okay. That's important to know.
These look like consensual photos. Now, again, because of the nature of a lot of the photos, you don't really see a lot of Robyn's face. But again, they all were taken in Aruba.
And we know it's her.
It is absolutely her. And they all look like two consensual adults.
Okay.
And that's kind of where I want to leave this. They were not under any kind of duress. And if they are of two consenting adults, just leave it be. Don't let this be your sticking point that you remember about Robyn with these sensational pictures.
Sure.
I guess what I'm saying. Robyn's family has been pretty tight-lipped about the photos.
Sure.
Which, of course. Gary's attorney spoke up saying that Gary lived a different lifestyle than most and that he shouldn't be judged for that. As in, this taking nude photos of women and very provocative poses was just part of Gary. Just who Gary is.
Well, and my opinion is if it's two consensual adults, then do what you want.
And that's kind of where I think I'm going to have to leave that. Now, during this time, searchers also tried tirelessly to find Robyn or her body, but again, no success. In an interview on the Today Show, John Q. Kelly, Beth Holloway's attorney, who helped in the search for Natalie Holloway, described Aruba as desolate and rugged, with 80% of the island being unreachable. He said large shifting sand dunes, caves, and abandoned salt mine shafts make it extremely tough to search the small island. Because I was thinking, I'm like, well, isn't it easy to find, a body in such a small area? But apparently it's not.
And does that go for the waters as well?
Yeah.
We know Natalie was never found.
That's right.
So, her being in the water is not unusual that they didn't find her.
Yeah. After 2 months of searching, Aruban authorities called off the hunt and began concentrating solely on gathering evidence to find Gary Giordano guilty of Robyn's murder. Because it's one or the other. They began by breaking down Robyn's last day. Gary said Robyn started off the day by taking 2 sleeping pills.
Robyn started the day with 2 sleeping pills?
Yes, Gary said Robyn started the day with 2 sleeping pills and then drank 2 glasses of vodka before they went to the restaurant.
Why would she do this? Did he give a reason just to get stoned or something?
Maybe. And remember, that does fit with the eyewitness testimony that she was woozy while at the restaurant. And he claims he only served her vodka and orange juice out of the car. Because remember, I was like, what is he putting in that drink?
I remember.
And again, he said this was only to save money. And again, he didn't put anything else in the drinks. But if I had taken 2 sleeping pills and I'm on my 3rd or 4th glass of vodka, and she's a petite woman and she didn't have much to eat. Remember, she ordered the salad, but didn't really eat very much. So I would imagine this probably didn't make her feel so great.
Do we know anything about, was she like a regular sleeping pill taker?
I don't know.
Okay.
No.
Because just the pills would put me out. Just the drinks would put me out. But maybe if you were used to one or the other or both, maybe. But yeah, very strange. Why would you start your morning with sleeping pills?
Isn't that weird?
And then go out to lunch?
And then go snorkeling?
This one's hard.
Yeah, it is. Police were also able to find 3 witnesses that day that saw Gary and Robyn. A man fishing saw Robyn and Gary walking along the beach at 4:22 p.m., which would fit with the timeline from the video camera. And that was about 10 minutes after they left the restaurant. Now, instead of getting in the water, as Gary claims, the witness said he saw them get in a rental car and drive away, and he did not see them return. Police did corroborate this story as they saw the car parked behind the restaurant 2 separate times, but they couldn't see if Robyn was in the car the second time because of the dark tinted windows. As a rebuttal to this, I will say that Gary has spoken about this particular situation. He claims that based on the cell service of both of their cell phones and the GPS tracking of the car, detectives have determined that the car did not move. However, I did not see that anywhere, but I know there are a lot of people that really want Gary to be guilty, so I don't think that's going to be as readily published as this version.
But we should have, and by we, I mean authorities, should have a definitive answer because there's footage. So they either saw the car leave or
I'm
they
offering
didn't.
both because I wasn't able to say for sure which
one's true.
version it is.
Okay.
So I'm telling you both on this particular situation.
Okay. So maybe the car moved, maybe it didn't. Who do
Right.
you believe?
Who do you believe?
Okay.
Now, another witness who spoke to Gary after Robyn disappeared said Gary reeked of alcohol. And when the women asked him about seeing blood, Gary responded and said, quote, "No, that's my girlfriend. I wouldn't kill her," which is a little awkward. A third witness that saw Gary at the restaurant after Robyn went missing confirmed that Gary smelled of alcohol and remembered seeing the scratch on Gary's neck. He also remembered Gary being very calm and thought it was strange that he wasn't out looking for Robyn, which I think we can all collectively say, yes, that's strange.
Yes. And the scratch alone, you mentioned it, but like if it really was a rocky, rough beach and he really was fighting, that could explain the scratch, or it could have been a defense, or a defense wound from somebody else.
And I think both of those are accurate. I have not seen anything to say for sure it was a nail mark or
Right.
for sure it looked like somebody was grabbing him. It could absolutely, he was fighting for his life. He was gripping to go onto the shore and he had a small cut on his neck. I will say in the arrest photos that they have of 3 days after Robyn's disappearance, you cannot see any visible neck scratches in the arrest photo.
So it was a minor wound.
I would assume it's a minor one. Now, granted, I can't see the side or back of his neck, but if it was on the front of his neck, it must have been minor because you cannot see it in the photo.
Okay.
Additional testimony was also provided by many of Robyn's friends and family members who believe firmly there is no way Robyn would have just gone swimming or snorkeling with her hair and makeup done the way that it was.
Okay, that right there says a lot.
Robyn was an excellent swimmer, but remember, she was a girly girl and rarely liked to get in the water at all. So, like, an impromptu swim seemed truly unbelievable to them.
Especially with somebody who it kind of appears you're not really into.
Right. Like, she's not going to try to impress him or anything.
Right. I wondered about the hair and makeup, but then when you said that was kind of like her go-to, I thought, oh, well, maybe she's one of those girls who wears makeup to the gym. And
I think she was.
Mm-hmm.
However, going in the water was not something she enjoyed doing and would often not go in the water or to the beach because she didn't want to get her hair messed up.
Okay.
Remember, she's got the full extensions.
Yeah.
She's got the full thing. I mean, she's putting a lot of time and investment into the way she looks at the moment.
Sure.
And it just doesn't seem to fit to me.
No, it didn't to me either.
It was also noted in evaluation of the day of Robyn's disappearance that the weather was particularly calm, like unusually calm. So the idea of, again, as we've talked about, surprise storms or dangerous conditions like unidentified rip currents is very unlikely.
Which right there is
That's
his
the crux
story.
of his whole story. Like if you
So-
don't believe there was anything dangerous happen in the water, I mean, I guess there's always the theory about his shoes and socks.
Yeah, but what would explain her? Unless she's intoxicated. Now, if they're both highly intoxicated, then swimming anywhere, even in a pool, is dangerous. You
And
know.
I cannot discount that theory that it wasn't necessarily a current that, you know, I don't want to say did Robyn in because that sounds so callous, but it may not have been anything with the water. It could have just been her state of mind.
But then why not say that? Why not say we were drunk, we thought we'd go skinny dipping, and it went wrong?
Well, that goes into one of my discussions towards the end of the episode
Okay.
of why maybe embarrassment on his part, because he does say we were a sober couple. Yet we have witnesses saying that they weren't.
And we see them drinking. And we know she took 2 sleeping pills, according to him, 2 sleeping pills and several vodkas that morning. So how sober can you be?
So maybe this was truly just a drunken accident.
And he's embarrassed or feels negligent or, doesn't want to get the blame. Okay.
It's possible. I do feel like this story he's come up with makes him look worse than just taking the fall for making a drunken decision.
Sure. And then maybe his non-emergent aura as he's looking for help, maybe that could be explained by the fact that he's intoxicated or something.
It's all possible. Sure.
All right.
Almost 7 weeks after Robyn's disappearance, police staged a reenactment to retrace the couple's steps. The actors were actual Aruban police officers who wore the same outfits that Robyn and Gary wore. They drove the exact same rental car and even went down to the beach at the exact same time. The actor playing Gary ran to the restaurant just as Gary claimed to do. This was all to try to essentially poke holes in Gary's story to see if there's something that could not have transpired the way that he said it did. But unfortunately, this didn't yield any more clues than they already had. With news of Gary Giordano's suspicious activity and Robyn's mysterious disappearance spreading all over the world, women began to come forward to police with plenty of additional information about Gary.
Oh, no. Uh-oh.
It turns out several of Gary's exes had taken out restraining orders on him.
Oh, Stephanie, I just got chills again.
A woman he was seeing only 6 months before taking Robyn to Aruba took out a restraining order against him when she found out he was secretly taping them having sex and then posting intimate images of her on the internet.
Stephanie.
Yeah. Gary.
Oh,
Gary.
See, I was playing devil's advocate for a while, but now I just don't like you, Gary.
I don't like Gary, no. Now, when he confronted about it, he printed out images and put them in her neighbor's mailbox.
Okay. Yeah.
Disgusting.
I really don't like you, Gary. Oh my gosh, so gross.
According to this woman, he told her that the world would be better off without her and he could, quote, help.
All right, he's guilty. That's it. But case closed.
I was trying to help you, Gary, but now you've done it.
Ew.
When she went to the police, he responded by getting a restraining order against her.
Of course.
Claiming that she had sent him slanderous emails. In the end, though, her restraining order was granted and his was denied. Back in 2001, 10 years before Robyn went missing, Gary's first wife, Sharon Cohen, wrote, quote, "He can't control his anger," in court papers. The two were involved in a bitter divorce, and Sharon accused him of abusing their son, of breaking the family computer, and throwing telephones when he became angry. When she reported Gary to the police, he responded by pressing his own charges against her, saying she hit him with a spoon and slapped him. Another woman, Jeanette Farrago, a former neighbor of Gary's, started dating him around the time of his second divorce. She said he was charismatic, but could become angry and possessive, which I think we've already seen, though she did state that she never felt physically threatened. Once, he wanted to take her on a cruise, but became irate when she didn't want to go. Now, does that sound familiar?
A little bit.
Jeanette said Gary insisted on having her email password so he could ensure she was not seeing anyone else. If she said she was going to the grocery store, he would want photographic proof.
Oh my gosh.
Sometimes she said he would spy on her and text her with details of her outfit so she knew he was watching. He even hid in the woods behind her home to watch her, brace yourself, dressed in a deer costume.
Okay, that is not funny, and yet... Stephanie, he's nuts. And infuriating. Like, ooh.
Jeanette said he's Mr. Perfect, and then he's totally different.
Okay, so you know what? Like, I know that you can be all of these awful things and not be a murderer, but man, it sure makes me feel like you're more capable of murderer when I hear you're capable of all this awfulness. Like,
yeah.
Ew.
So, a few things to take away from this. He's the jealous type.
Jealous?
So, if there was any thought that Robyn was texting with Richard, was thinking about getting back with Richard, that certainly could have been a trigger. And Gary is not one that likes to hear no.
Right. And a history of violence or abuse at the least with the little boy. And then, oh my gosh, the photos, like...
awful.
Just
now,
yuck.
Can we go back to the deer thing for a minute?
Can we, please?
Because it turns out this is like a thing.
What?
For Gary.
Furries.
Not furries, but apparently he has a jackalope mask that several women have reported him wearing as he is spying on them or watching them right outside their windows.
Okay. Seriously, I'm covered in chill bumps. Imagine
there are
somebody doing this.
Photos.
No.
There is a weird, blurry photo that one of these women captured of him standing outside her window with a jackalope mask on.
Stephanie, this is literally... I have tears in my eyes right now.
The woman that took the photo said he was lighting up his face with a cigar lighter.
This is the creepiest thing we've ever discussed here.
What? The actual... what?
Have you seen this photo?
Yes, I have.
I must see this photo.
It is weird. He's weird. This is weird. This is not normal. If you do this, this is not normal.
This is like...
stop doing that.
A horror movie.
Yes. So that's a thing now. So that's a new thing.
Ugh.
I feel like, is that another bomb drop?
No,
I feel like it should be.
I am like so like it literally just, I'm telling you, I had like a visceral reaction. That just went from like, I don't like him to...
Ooh.
What?
Yeah. It's the deer head, the jackalope deer head that did it for me.
Standing outside your window, lighting my
just
face up,
intimidating
just
people that told him no.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. According to ABC News, a woman named Carrie Emerson came forward saying Gary wrote her after seeing pictures of her teenage daughter online. He said that he would like to use her as a model and he would pay for her to spend a week in Aruba and give her $5,000 of spending money. When the woman started asking questions like, wait a minute, this sounds a little off, Gary said, quote, "Don't worry, it won't be like Natalie Holloway or anything." I mean, to actually reference a girl who has lost her life in Aruba, like it's funny.
Right, like
that is not funny.
No.
That's not entertaining. That's not funny. And that is definitely not reassuring.
No.
It's not reassuring. Why would you say that? Then Gary got wild. According to Carrie.
Oh, okay,
then
good.
he got wild.
Now we're getting wild.
Then he put on his jackalope head and he... no, I mean, he probably did, actually, now that I know what happened. According to Carrie, Gary said that if she slept with him, he would set her up financially. And then he also said, if you also let me sleep with your daughter, I'll set you both up for life.
Yeah, I'm running out of words for this guy. He's just gross.
When Carrie refused, Like,
and hopefully reported him to the police.
which she did. She went directly to the FBI. Gary apparently cursed her out and told her, quote, "I can make you disappear and nobody would ever look for you." So there's that. Taco Stein, the Solicitor General in Aruba, famously said of Gary, quote, "He's a mean bastard. The way he treats women, it's all geared towards himself." And we don't usually use curse words, but I feel like I can save it for this one.
Well, and I don't normally say hate, but I kind of hate Gary. Ew.
Yeah.
You know what? So even if it was an accident, this just explains why he's just like, who cares? He just has no respect for anybody other than himself. He's just a horrible person.
That's the way it would appear. Yeah.
Ugh.
Unfortunately, even with all of this circumstantial evidence mounting, the Aruban government was not able to find anything to definitively link Gary to Robyn's disappearance. And Gary was set free.
Ugh.
I know. A few weeks before his release, Gary hired a new attorney. And it might be one you're familiar with. Does the name Jose Baez mean anything to you?
Stephanie, he did not.
Yeah, so Jose Baez, if you're not familiar, is the very famous attorney who represented Casey Anthony and her trial, which I think she probably is. Anyway, she was found not guilty, but she's definitely guilty.
She's definitely guilty, but, and I mean, we know all the, like, speculation between the two of them throughout that whole thing. Like, he's not somebody I would consider hiring if I found myself
Oh,
in
you're talking
trouble.
about all
Jose
the Jose Baez and Casey Anthony, like, having
there's
a relationship.
Yeah, and just, like, he's just dirty. I don't know.
Okay,
Yuck.
I want to go back and talk about the insurance policy. When Gary purchased flights to Aruba, he selected the American Express Assurance Insurance Policy that covered things, again, like lost bags, but also accidental deaths while on vacation. This is not cancellation insurance. According to him, that's useless. I don't buy that. It's just so weird.
I get $1.5 million in case my friend gets a cold and needs to go to the doctor, but in case she cancels, because I don't know, her live-in boyfriend decides he doesn't want her going.
So he did not buy cancellation insurance.
Ay.
But he did buy all the other ones.
Yeah, of course.
Of course. Anywho, when he purchased the insurance, he listed his mother as his beneficiary, but listed Robyn's beneficiary as himself. He also noted that he and Robyn were partners. Now, this would mean that Gary has some kind of financial interest in Robyn's well-being. This would imply that they were married, had kids together, owned a business together, or even owned property together. Something to show they are actual partners, not just traveling companions. And of course, we know none of that is true. So when he began to try to collect on the insurance money for Robyn's disappearance, which I assume he fell under the accidental death clause, the insurance company was like, no. That's not what this is for. And I will add, in the policy, it says that if no body is found in a missing persons case, you have to wait a year to collect anyway, which makes sense.
Yeah, she might not be dead.
So even in, I don't want to say best case circumstances, because that's awful. So even if it turns out that Robyn was deceased at this point, if they have no body, he has to wait a whole year before he could cash in on this policy. But also, American Express sees a lot of holes in his selection of this insurance. And honestly, it's unethical to think you can collect on I don't want to say a casual person's demise, but I mean a casual acquaintance, whatever it is that they were. It's very unusual to think that you're going to collect money for that.
The thought would, as we've discussed, would literally never even occur to me.
So American Express sued Gary to void the contract and to stop payment of any insurance claims to Gary.
Please tell me they won that suit.
Of course, this angered Gary very much.
Oh no, not the mask. Did the mask come out?
It's so funny. Almost every image I have of Gary now is him sitting at his computer or like walking around the street in like a jackalope mask. So he wound up countersuing American Express Assurance for $3.5 million. And honestly, I haven't been able to find out why he thought he was entitled to $3.5 million. His pain and suffering?
Absolutely.
I don't really know. Whatever it was, the judge found in favor of American Express and completely dismissed Gary's claim completely.
Well, thank God, because I would be so mad to know that this guy made a dime off of poor Robyn's demise.
There were a lot of people that were very pleased to hear this judge's ruling. Gary returned home to the United States on November 28th, 2011. And Gary wasted no time and immediately hit the news circuit, showing up on almost all of the American morning shows, throwing out regularly contradicting stories. And then, in May of 2012, Gary was arrested again for indecent exposure after he was caught naked with a female in the back of his SUV in a parking garage. When police confronted Gary, his response was, quote, "This isn't what it looks like." Later, he would say they were just putting on bathing suits or changing clothes, but there was a mattress in the back of his truck. I'll just leave it at that. In 2014, Gary released his tell-all book titled The Aruba Files, The Redemption of Gary V. Giordano. The book is shockingly self-published and sadly out of print. I was able to read the description of the book, however, and it tells me all I need to know. Side note, I also think Gary wrote the book description. Here are some excerpts. Gary soon found himself in the middle of a worldwide witch hunt fueled by tabloid news, outrageous headlines, fame seekers, judicial corruption, revenge, and betrayal. He was caged like an animal in solitary confinement, mentally and physically tortured and repeatedly interrogated for hours, days, and months in the infamous Aruba Kia prison, but never gave up hope. He hopes his story will empower others to persevere in the face of overwhelming adversity and expose judicial corruption and media malice. Gary Giordano received no money or financial gains associated with Robyn's death and lost millions due to the real perpetrators revealed in this book. Gary is a staunch advocate of the wrongfully accused, continues to fight for the truth, and is dedicated to exposing judicial abuse of powers in the United States and abroad. This book is dedicated to the memory and life of Robyn Gardner.
Oh, I'm glad she was mentioned.
She was mentioned.
Okay. Yeah. If you can get that far.
He has gone on to say he is more of a victim than Robyn because he was incarcerated for 4 months.
No, he did not.
He did. He absolutely did.
He said, I think he might actually, I know this word gets thrown around a lot, but he might actually be like a real narcissist.
He's got something not right up there. Yeah, I think that's
it's
true.
literally all about him. I mean, she died and he's the real victim.
Mm-hmm. There are some that think he wrote this book to try to make money when the insurance fell through.
Sure.
I mean, if you believe he's guilty, right? Honestly, I just think he likes being in the spotlight. So
I think it could be both.
Yeah. Now, when Gary was trying to promote his book, he went on the Dr. Phil show. And honestly, it is wild. If you guys investigate, research, look into any piece of this case, please go on YouTube, find the Dr. Phil show where Dr. Phil is interviewing Gary Giordano. You will not be disappointed. Gary just contradicts himself over and over and never actually answers any questions. And almost like at the end of every sentence, he references his book.
Oh, no. Ugh.
Robyn's sister, Danielle, was invited on the show to confront Gary. Obviously, she's got some very strong feelings about him, right? And every question she asked him, again, live, to his face, directly on the stage with him, he just said, well, you should go read my book. I mean, this is to a grieving sister.
He's so gross.
What a piece of work, right? Truly, if you want a good laugh, Please go watch this interview. So all that that's a lot. That's a lot of information here. So now we're going to go ahead and bring it home. We're going to come full circle here into some theories as to what happened to Robyn. First, Gary participated in her death. And I think you can look at it from several different angles. And clearly the media has absolutely condemned him. If you look up almost anything in this case, he's the guy. He's the one that did it. There are no other options. I see there could be, we've already talked about it, like some other things that could have come together. But he's the great villain. I see why they think that. I mean, he has a history of abusing women. He's spun multiple stories, and none of them really make a lot of sense. Like, you never went back for her. You never looked for her. You were a certified dive instructor. And even to say there was a storm, why would you even say that?
He's just so completely unsympathetic.
Yes.
That, like, you almost, I don't know, we've talked before about how you often just want somebody to blame. You just need there to be somebody to blame, and he doesn't make you not want to blame him. He's
right.
He's just not likable.
Yeah. Now, the second theory, and this is actually pretty heartbreaking because it's one that Robyn's boyfriend, Richard, still subscribes to, and that is that Robyn is alive and just stuck in a sex trafficking ring. Honestly, I feel like Richard is leaning that way just because it keeps Robyn alive, and I don't know, I hate to say that, but I feel like that's the most palatable option at this point, because otherwise you have to think she's dead.
But what does he think? I mean, they saw her go to the beach and then she disappeared. So does he think somebody grabbed her? Does he think Gary's like part of the ring? Like,
I think it could be any of those.
Okay.
In an ABC News interview, Richard said, quote, "There isn't any sign of her at all. No clue of her. No trace of her whatsoever that we know about. I can't imagine it would take more than a half an hour to get to Venezuela. So from 4:15 in the afternoon until 6 in the evening, there's an hour and 45 minutes before he comes back and finally tells somebody that Robyn's missing." So he doesn't downplay Gary's involvement in her disappearance and says that Gary may have been involved in the trafficking itself. In an interview with Good Morning America, Richard said of the trafficking and Gary's involvement, quote, "That's something I've been thinking about the entire time since day one. I think it's very possible, and I wonder what Giordano's involvement was. There's a whole underworld down there. I don't know what he knows about Aruba."
And I don't think any of that is untrue. Like, all of that is very valid. I would just need to know, like, okay, they walked onto the beach. I guess they could have continued walking and out of camera sight, or maybe there's a boat wait. I would just need to know the logistics for how somebody grabbed her.
Well, strangely enough, Gary also seems to give validity to this theory.
So he thinks she just washed up somewhere?
Well, in an ABC News interview, he said, quote, "What you don't know about Aruba is that Aruba has two main sources of income, and it's not tourism. It's cocaine and human trafficking. And where we were, it takes a half hour to drive a boat to Venezuela. And it turns out that where we were, the beach, that's where they drop off illegals to swim to shore." So I think the idea was somehow she was snatched, or somehow Gary handed her off. Maybe he drugged her that morning with something and he was able to make a quick buck.
Okay. I mean, not out of the realm of possibility.
I can't say there's a lot of evidence to support any of that, but the fact that Richard and Gary, in some very strange twist, have alluded to this, maybe it's a possibility. I think it's the theory that keeps Robyn alive.
Right. And for Gary, I kind of feel like anything that takes the spotlight off of him, he's like, well, I know I said she drowned, but if you think she was trafficked, I think she was trafficked.
I absolutely think that could be part of it as well. And then the final theory, which we've already kind of explored a little bit, and crazy enough, I haven't read anywhere. That was a theory that you and I have come up with. I haven't read it in any articles, but it seems a logical one to explore, and that's the chance that Robyn and Gary were snorkeling when heavily inebriated. And
right.
Robyn drowned.
And there really was an accident, right?
And was swept out to sea. Her body was simply swept out to sea after she drowned from the alcohol. Now, Gary has vehemently denied that the two were intoxicated.
But witnesses, we've already said, witnesses say that they were.
Absolutely. On the Dr. Phil show, he refers to he and Robyn as a sober couple several times, which I don't understand. We know for sure they had at least a few drinks because it's on camera. And Gary did say Robyn had sleeping pills that morning, as we know, and she hadn't had anything to eat. Could she have just succumbed to the effects, and Gary was so into himself, or was maybe so intoxicated himself that he didn't realize what was happening until it was too late? But if this is the case, just say it's an accident. It's just a tragic accident. So I don't know if he started spinning the story and now he's stuck in it and he can't find a way out of the story.
He doesn't want to be seen as irresponsible for getting in the water in
Maybe he's
unsafe
embarrassed
conditions.
that he lost her, or that he didn't use good judgment. I mean, all those things. But that would explain why he went in his socks and shoes. Maybe he wasn't thinking clearly. That's why they went to this really not so inviting place on the beach.
Right. They just weren't thinking. And honestly, a rocky beach, I mean, if there's rocks on the sand, there's rocks in the water as well. Maybe she hit her head. Like, her drowning and it being an accident is not out of the realm of possibility.
But Gary making it so strange after the fact is what makes this strange.
Right.
You know?
And anytime anybody lies to cover up what really happened, they almost always just do so much more damage.
It makes you look guilty.
Right. So, I don't know. He's still so unlikable, though. Like, if this were just a really likable person, then I would say, that may be what happened. But he's so unlikable that, like, I don't know. I just want to blame him.
Yeah. For the most part, after this additional arrest of indecent exposure, Gary has been pretty quiet. He's gone off the grid, at least up to this point. Thank goodness. So hopefully we won't hear any more of Gary Giordano. Maybe he's learned his lesson that maybe the spotlight isn't what he wanted after all. But that's the incredibly tragic story of Robyn Gardner.
That is really sad. I feel so much for Richard. I mean, oh, what a, like, heart-wrenching thought. And then her family, and to have all the stuff that they didn't know come out.
Well, and, things about, Robyn's lifestyle and things that may not have been, what she would have wanted her family to know or what her family would have known. It's just unfortunate, really.
Yeah, it's private. Like, your sex life and your...
And just see it plastered all over the news and all over every, newspaper. It's unfortunate.
Yeah. No, that's rough. I really feel for this family. And chances are, I don't think we're ever going to get answers because it's been so long. I mean, we're never going to find her. So.
No. I think it's very likely that her body was washed out to sea and we won't know. Right. I mean, unless somehow this theory of human trafficking is a possibility, but I just don't see that being very likely.
Yeah, that seems too far off of what the story's been all along.
Right.
Wow, man. Okay, that's a bummer case.
It is a bit of a bummer case.
Ugh. Well, let's talk about something happy.
Can we please?
Let's talk about our branch of hope.
Let's do it.
We know the true stories we tell on this podcast do provide entertainment and excitement, but we always want to show compassion and respect to the victims and their loved ones, and the Branch of Hope Foundation allows us to do just that. It allows us to give back to the community, to spread awareness about unsolved cases, and hopefully bring a little bit of comfort and hope to those who really need it.
This month we are supporting the Kendrick Johnson Foundation, and this is based on our Kendrick Johnson case that we covered at the beginning of this month, and we hope that Kendrick's family is able to get some answers. We do hope that this podcast is entertaining and gives you a little bit of excitement, but we never want to move away from the human portion of each of our episodes, and that's why we do what we do, by giving back. You can always join our Patreon if you would like, as a portion of all of our Patreon subscriptions goes directly to these organizations. So you can get some great content, some freebies in there, and also support a good cause.
Good all the way around.
We are simply a podcast leading through words and actions. If you love this episode, love us, or love what we are doing at the Branch of Hope Foundation, please like and subscribe and tell someone. Forward this episode to a friend who might like it, or a friend who is thinking about going to Aruba with an acquaintance. Tell them no. Don't do it. Please send us an email at thedarkoakpodcast@gmail.com. We are open to your questions, comments, and anything else you want to share. For other ways to connect, hop over to thedarkoak.com.
Be sure to follow us next week where I tell you the story all about Lindy Chamberlain. Is she responsible for her infant daughter's death?
The dingo.
Or was it the dingo?
The dingo.
Yeah. It's a rough one.
That is going to be a rough one. Ugh, the kid ones get me. But they are important. All right, you know what? I guess I'm going to be here.
Well, and I will tell you that, yes, obviously the death of her daughter is, a major part of the case, but it's a lot to do with, the justice system and how she was treated, and, well, there's a lot to it.
Okay. Well, again, gonna be here.
All right.
Listeners should be here, too.
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Be here.
Love you guys. You guys rock.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
This episode of The Dark Oak was created, researched, written, recorded, hosted, edited, published, and marketed by Cynthia and Stephanie of Just Us Gals Productions, and made possible by you, our shiver-seeking listener. Special thanks goes to Justice Himes for our incredible artwork and Ryan Crete for our amazing music.